For much of their history, the Georgia Bulldogs were a good football program, but they didn't have the legendary status that they do now. By the time the 1970s came to an end, Georgia had a solid resume, with 7 SEC titles and 1 disputed national championship. That national title came in 1942 when Georgia legends Frank Sinkwich and Charlie Trippi led the Dogs to an 11-1 record and a Rose Bowl victory at the end of the season. But it had been a long time since that magical year, and the Dogs really hadn't come close to claiming another national title. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, Georgia would put together a season most teams can only dream of, returning to the mountaintop for the first time in 38 years, in the most improbable and thrilling way imaginable. This is the incredible story of the 1980 national champions. The expectations weren't very high for Georgia coming into the 1980 season, as the Dogs had gone just 6-5 in 1979. While the expectations weren't high, there was excitement for the future of the program, as Georgia had landed the #1 recruit in the nation, none other than Georgia native Herschel Walker. Vince Dooley had recruited him heavily and was present in the stands as Herschel led Johnson County to their first and only state championship. Getting a local player like this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but Herschel was not initially impressive to coaches when he arrived in Athens.
And one thing sticking in my mind before he ever played his first play, Dooley had said to me very quietly, "What I may have on my hands here is nothing but a big, stiff fullback." And that's the way he put it. And in scrimmages, the guys had taken care of him pretty good.
This is a funny thing to hear about a man that would smash the Georgia record books, but that was the reality in 1980. Georgia's first game would be against Tennessee in Knoxville, with Herschel set as the team's third-string running back. The Volunteers elected to receive, and Georgia forced a turnover on the opening drive. With great field position, the Dogs would then quickly fumble the ball right back and waste a great opportunity to put points on the board. Midway through the second quarter, Georgia found themselves on their own 1-yard line. Buck Belue would fumble the snap, and the Dogs recovered in their own end zone, resulting in a safety and giving Tennessee a 2-0 lead. The Volunteers would score on the ensuing drive and take a 9-0 lead into halftime. In the second half, the Georgia offense still couldn't get going, and Tennessee would score another touchdown to take a 15-0 lead with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. After stalling out on the ensuing drive, Georgia was forced to punt, and this play would be the turning point in the game.
Men coming on him, and the kick is good. Long, going to come down inside the 30, and we hit him. He fumbled the ball, and the Dog missed it. It's rolling to 10, to 7, to 5. We fumble it again. We fumble it. It's in the end zone. Get on that ball. It's on the back of the end zone. We had 3 men knock it 20 yards. We'd land on it on our chest. We landed on it with our heads, and it went 20 more yards. They gave us 2 points, and we could have scored on the play. Very, very, very easy.
On the following drive, Georgia would finally give Herschel Walker a chance, and it was a decision that would change the course of this game and the team as a whole.
We put this Herschel Walker into the ballgame, and I never will forget because he was the third tailback. And he didn't know where he was going, but he was going somewhere in a hurry.
Georgia knocking on the door. They're on the Tennessee 16. Tennessee has dominated this one. They gave us a break. We couldn't use it. Then we gave them a couple. 15-2, Tennessee leading. Crowd roaring against Georgia, trying to make them drop it so they can't hear. We hand it off to Herschel. There's a hole. 5, 10, 12, he's running over people. Oh, you Herschel Walker. My God almighty, he ran right through 2 men. Herschel ran right over 2 men. They had him dead away inside the 9. Herschel Walker went 16 yards. He drove right over orange shirts, just driving and running with those big thighs. My God, a freshman.
Early in the fourth, Georgia would find themselves deep in Tennessee territory, and once again the Dogs looked to Herschel Walker to make a play.
Slot with an eye. Tennessee crashing off one side. We pitch it to Herschel, going to get him out. 10, 8, 7, 5. Herschel Walker. Tennessee guessed the other side. We went to the short side and pitched it to that kid out of Johnson County. He got a block in front of him out around the 6 or 7 and got inside of it and went in the corner standing. Give the guy some rest. It's 15-15. My God, what's going to happen in the next 11 minutes and 16 seconds? Robinson to try the extra point. Tennessee, 7 men on the line. 1 man's going to jump in the middle, and Rex sticks it up, and the kick is good. For the first time time tonight. Georgia 16, Tennessee 15.
With 4 minutes left in the game, Georgia clung to a 1-point lead with Tennessee on their 5-yard line. It was almost guaranteed that Tennessee would take the lead with a field goal or a touchdown, but then this happened.
We're in a 6-5. They put a man in motion. They pitch it to the tail. He fumbled. It rolls around. Everybody dives. I think Georgia's got the ball on the 2-yard line. We cracked it out of his hands. Georgia's caught the ball. About the 2, it spurted up in the air, and somebody dove on it in the secondary. They pitched to the tail with a man in motion and ran a sweep with a couple of blockers. He cut inside. He penetrated 4 yards. Eddie Weaver and Joe Crimmins hit him. Georgia's got the ball on a 1.5. Oh, God, look at the clock. 4:02, and it's on a 1.5.
The Georgia defense held strong for the rest of the game, giving Georgia a thrilling opening game victory.
And Buck curls over the ball, and somebody tried to blitz between Morrison and all. And look at the clock. Oh, look at the clock. They have come back, and they beat Tennessee 16-15.
After a tough road game to start the season, Georgia would get 5 consecutive home games, the first of which coming against Texas A&M. The Aggies were not a good team in 1980, and the Dogs would blow them out 42-0.
Aggies are in that 6-2 again. We put a man in motion this time, try to loosen that up a little, and we hand it off to Walker in the middle. 5, 10, 15, 20. There goes Herschel Walker. There goes Herschel Walker all the way. Man, did he turn it on after he got the first 12 yards. 75 yards. Crowd is gone bananas.
Their next game was against the Clemson Tigers. Georgia and Clemson had plenty of great battles during this time period, and this one was no exception. Georgia would strike first with a great punt return by team captain Scott Woerner.
And he gets it off long. Spiral. And Scott Woerner in the 35, the 40, the 45, the 50, the 45, the 40, the 35, the 30, the 25, the 20. Scott Woerner coming this way. Touchdown! Touchdown!
Late in the first, Woerner would make yet another big play.
Power eye. Everybody in close now. A man breaks motion left. Homer Jordan on 3rd and 9. He's sprinting back to the left. He stops. He throws it in the middle, and it's intercepted by Scott Woerner behind the end zone. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. There goes Scott Woerner, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. Scott Woerner down the side. One man going to knock him down around the 3. Scott Woerner, 97 yards. Dogs in a power eye. Clemson's in at 8-3 again. 2nd down. Diving Buck Belue. Touchdown. Buck Belue went over the top. Do you realize we've hardly seen the ball? We're leading 13-0 because of Scott Woerner.
The offense had little to do with the first 2 touchdowns, and they didn't do much the entire game, scoring just 6 more points in the final 3 quarters. The defense had little rest and was on the field for most of the game. They kept making plays, but Clemson slowly came back and trailed by only 4 points with 2 minutes left in the game. The Tigers were only 10 yards away from a go-ahead score, but the Dog defense dug deep and came up with a big play when it mattered most. This was a game Georgia should not have won, as Clemson completely dominated them in every offensive stat. But Georgia's defense forcing 4 turnovers, combined with Scott Woerner's 2 big plays, were just enough to get the Dogs the win. Georgia had an easier matchup in their next game, playing TCU at home.
Quarter, eyes slot left, TCU 5-man front. Herschel Walker at left tackle, ran over man of 45. Another one, the 40, the 35, the 30, the 25, the 20, the 10. One man got him low around the 10-yard line. Joe Bailey in. Herschel Walker comes out.
The Horned Frogs never really stood a chance in this one, as Georgia won in convincing fashion 34-3. Georgia appeared to have another easy matchup for their 5th game of the season, playing a 1-4 Ole Miss team, but the Rebels weren't going down without a fight. For most of the first half, the game went according to the script, with Georgia jumping out to a 3-score lead.
One man wide, one man short, and a 5-man front. Fake, Belue looking. He's going long down the left side. He had a man open in the middle. Touchdown, Amp Arnold in the corner.
Herschel Walker was out with an ankle injury this game, so Carney Norris got the start. The sophomore halfback would rush for 150 yards, including this touchdown, to give the Dogs a 17-0 lead. Everything was going Georgia's way, but Ole Miss would quickly come back with a pick six near the end of the half, before scoring on their first drive of the second half to cut the lead to 3. Despite the swing in momentum, the Dogs would stay composed, scoring a field goal and a touchdown to take a 28-14 lead. Ole Miss would score a touchdown late in the game, but their onside kick attempt failed, giving Georgia a 28-21 win. For their 5th consecutive home game, Georgia would match up against Vanderbilt. Herschel Walker was back from injury, and he put up a staggering 283 yards in this game, breaking Georgia's single-game rushing record, which had been set by Charlie Trippi all the way back in 1945. Vanderbilt never really stood a chance in this one, as Georgia cruised to their 3rd blowout win by a score of 41-0.
And up, Herschel Walker, 5, 10, 12, he ran over him. There he goes. Herschel's gone. Herschel just went 60 yards. First down, they pitch it to Herschel Walker, trying to get him out to the right, and he bursts out for 5. Herschel's got 10, 15, 20. He's got 25. He's picking up speed. There goes Herschel.
Georgia would then travel to Lexington to play a night game against Kentucky. The usual stars were making plays for Georgia, as an early Scott Woerner interception set up a Herschel Walker touchdown. The Dogs played a complete game in this one, with consistent defensive stops and turnovers followed by points from the offense. Kicker Rex Robinson would have a great game, drilling 2 long field goals from 50 and 47 yards respectively. Now, if you're wondering what in the world you are looking at, that is Fluffy Dog, Georgia's first costumed mascot in his 6th and final year, as he would go on to be replaced by Harry Dog at the end of the regular season. Anyway, Buck Belue and Amp Arnold would link up to put the finishing touches on a convincing 27-0 win.
Now looking close, Buck Belue sprinting out to the right, and Buck is going to go to Amp Arnold, and it's complete in the 35, the 40, the 45, the 50, the 45, he's down over the 35, and Amp Arnold has a man dive and miss him, and Amp Arnold is down in the corner.
Georgia would then come home for a massive top 15 matchup against South Carolina. The Gamecocks were led by eventual Heisman winner George Rogers and had a great defense that held all but one of their opponents to 14 points or less. This was a classic battle of 2 elite running teams with strong defenses, so every point counted. The Dogs would strike first on an incredible 57-yard field goal by Rex Robinson. This would be the only points of the entire first half, as a big defensive stop on 4th and goal kept Georgia from adding to their lead. On Georgia's first drive of the second half, Herschel Walker would break off a run that he believes is his single greatest run during his 3 years at Georgia.
South Carolina in a 5-3, and they run a trap with Herschel Walker, got a hole, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, there goes Herschel! Suddenly, 76 yards, Herschel Walker scores, hole at the right tackle. Man, did he turn it on when he had to. Suddenly, 9-0 and the Dogs lead, and the stadium trembles and cracks a little bit.
The defense would then immediately force a 3-and-out to set up the offense with good field position. After a short drive, Rex Robinson would drill another long field goal, this one from 51 yards, to give the Dogs a 13-0 lead. South Carolina would quickly answer with a field goal and a touchdown on their next 2 drives to cut Georgia's lead to 3. South Carolina had momentum, and Georgia's defense was getting tired from the constant rushing attack led by George Rogers. Midway through the 4th, South Carolina was in the red zone, in position to either tie the game with a field goal or take the lead with a touchdown. But then this happened.
One man split out, Dogs almost again up on a 7-man line. Put the fullback in motion. They pitch it to Rogers. He cuts in. He fumbled the ball. It pops. It's still rolling. Georgia jumps on the ball on the 16. Fumble. Dogs have got the ball on their own 16. Carolina was about to take a lead. Finally, there was a fumble. Waited for a turnover.
Georgia would chew most of the remaining clock before picking off South Carolina in the final moments to secure a gutsy 13-10 win. With number 1 Alabama and number 2 UCLA losing on the same day, Georgia moved up to number 2 in the rankings. Their next game was a big ranked matchup against longtime rival Florida. Things couldn't have started better for Georgia in this game, as Herschel Walker broke off a touchdown run on just the 4th play from scrimmage.
And Florida comes up into a 6-2 now. Buck Belue looking at it, going to pitch it to Herschel Walker, try to get him outside. He's going to get 5. He's got 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. He needs a block. There goes Herschel. There goes Herschel.
After a Florida field goal, Georgia would score another touchdown at the end of an 11-play, 77-yard drive. Late in the first half, Georgia would fumble deep in their own territory. Florida would quickly turn this into a touchdown with a pass to Chris Collinsworth to make the score 14-10 at halftime. 2 field goals were the only points of the third quarter, as Georgia seemed to be in the driver's seat entering the fourth. Then Florida wide receiver Tyrone Young would make this incredible play to get the ball all the way down to the 11. On the next play, James Jones would score a touchdown before Florida went for 2 and converted it to make it a 2-point game. Midway through the fourth, Florida would kick a field goal to take the lead 21-20. After exchanging punts, Georgia found themselves in a dire situation. With a minute and a half left, they were on their own 7-yard line. This run-heavy offense had to find a way to get the ball all the way down the field in a short amount of time. After going nowhere on the first 2 downs, Georgia faced a 3rd down and 10. All hope seemed lost, but then lightning struck.
Florida in a stand-up 5. They may or may not blitz. They won't. Buck back, 3rd down on the 8. In trouble. Got a block behind him. Gonna throw and a run. Complete to the 25, to the 30. Lindsay Scott, 35, 40. Lindsay Scott, 45, 50, 45, 40. Run, Lindsay, 25, 20, 50, 10, 5. Lindsay Scott, Lindsay Scott, Lindsay Scott. You know, this game has always been called the world's greatest cocktail party. Do you know what is going to happen here tonight and up at St. Simon's and Jekyll Island and all those places where all those dog people have got these condominiums for 4 days? Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top. We were gone. I gave up. You did too. We were out of it and gone. Miracle.
Following that incredible score, the defense quickly intercepted the ball to secure the win for Georgia. This play by Lindsay Scott is one of the most famous plays in Georgia football history. The play was first given the nickname Belue to Scott, but has since come to be known as Run Lindsay Run. The play was just designed to get the first down to keep the drive alive, but it somehow turned into a touchdown that kept Georgia's undefeated season alive. This play also catapulted Georgia to number 1 in the rankings, as number 1 Notre Dame had tied Georgia Tech earlier in the day. All Georgia had to do was win their last 3 games, and they would be undisputed national champions for the first time in school history.
You know, as I think about that play, I think about my mother after a 2nd down, leaving the stands and taking the walk to the locker room underneath the stands. And at the time, she just heard the place going berserk, and she didn't know what had happened. She was coming to the locker room to console her oldest son. We had a chance now to go on and fulfill our dreams of winning the SEC title, winning the national title.
You know, we were on a roll. We had a roll going. We thought we were unbeatable, and I think that Georgia game proved that we were.
Georgia then went on the road to face longtime rival Auburn. If Georgia wins this game, they are SEC champions for the 8th time in school history. Auburn would surprise the top-ranked Bulldogs with an early touchdown to take a 7-0 lead. The Dogs settled in shortly after, though, and took the momentum back with a blocked punt.
Got kind of a high snap. It's blocked. Blocked. And it's picking up, driving down in there in the corner. Grady Gilbert going in the corner for a touchdown. Greg Bell was the man that blocked it, number 20. The Dogs have blocked the punt. 1 second. He's going to get a play off. He's looking. He's going to lob it. Touchdown! Auburn's in that 7-4 again. Buck Belue with a power eye. And takes it, and Buck Belue scores! 5-2. Buck Belue going to pitch it to Herschel. No block. He's going to try to turn around and go the other way. Buck Belue blocks. 22-20. 15. 10. Herschel smells it and scores.
Auburn scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter as the Dogs cruised to a 31-21 victory. Georgia got to play their final regular season game at home against Georgia Tech. The win against Auburn the previous week meant that Georgia were the SEC champions and were going to the Sugar Bowl no matter what. However, they still needed to win this game to remain at the top of the polls and be in position to win the national title. Georgia fans had nothing to worry about though, as Herschel Walker ran over the Jackets all day and led the Dogs to a convincing 38-20 win.
And we are in a shootout with these guys. Jones wide in motion to the left. Try to run a draw with Herschel Walker. He drives off the tackle. 5 yards, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Herschel, there goes Herschel. Touchdown!
And just like that, Georgia was one game away from winning it all. The Dogs would face number 7 Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl for the national championship. This Fighting Irish team was very good and had proved it all year long, with 4 ranked wins including a shutout win on the road against number 5 Alabama. This game was going to be a war, and Georgia was prepared for battle. But then, on the very first series of the game, disaster struck. Herschel Walker had dislocated his shoulder, which can be clearly seen here with his left arm hanging significantly lower than his other arm. To have your big star get knocked out in the biggest game of the year was a significant hit to team morale.
Herschel's shoulder popped out of joint. He left the playing field. In came Carney Norris, our backup tailback, and I remember the huddle just becoming silent. Our star attraction, our bread and butter guy, was leaving the ball game maybe for the entire game with everything on the line.
Doctors told Herschel that he was done for the day, but he disagreed.
Doctors checked him again, and his shoulder had actually dislocated out through the back of his back.
I remember him saying to me, Herschel is finished. And I almost could turn around and say, "You're finished." I almost wanted to choke him when he said that.
I remember them telling him that, keep him off, and I remember him telling them, "No, I'm not keeping my pads off. Put them back on. I am going to play, and I will be in for the rest of the ball game."
Butch Mulheron, our team doctor, puts it back into place.
And he's raised and he said, "Feels good," and he just ran back on the field.
And yet I'm gonna get hurt in the first quarter. It was like, you're not supposed to get hurt. What are you talking about getting hurt? And I remember something I learned is pain is sometime in your head. If you want to do something, you can do it. You just have to block out a couple of things.
To come back like that and play fired up the rest of the offense, and they blocked twice as hard for the rest of the game. After an early Notre Dame field goal, the Irish lined up for another one to expand their lead to 6-0. But then, a massive play was made by a player that wasn't even supposed to be there. Terry Hogue was a freshman on Georgia that had not traveled with the team all year. However, one practice just a few days before the Sugar Bowl changed everything. While practicing field goal kicks, Terry Hogue blocked 3 field goals, which caused Coach Dooley to make a last-minute change.
He actually blocked a couple of kicks in practice, in bowl practice, and it was kind of bothering me, and it was kind of bothering some of the coaches. But on the flip side, it was like, hey, this might be something that we can use to our advantage and actually utilize versus just being a pain.
When he blocked the third one, I just said, I stopped practice. I said, "Go inside and get packed. You're going to New Orleans and you're on the field goal block team."
So a freshman that hadn't played all year was getting his start in the national championship. Fortunately for the Dogs, Terry Hogue delivered.
He is 4 out of 6 from this distance. It is blocked. Number 14, it looked like came flying in. And the ball comes rolling back across midfield. And that's got to fire up the Georgia Bulldogs.
Herschel then drove the Dogs down the field to set up a game-tying field goal by Rex Robinson. On the ensuing kickoff, something truly bizarre happened.
Here's the kickoff by Robinson. 50-yard field goal by Oliver and a 46-yard field goal by Robinson. The ball's bouncing around inside the 5-yard line. It was a mistake by Notre Dame. Georgia's after it, and Georgia's got the ball. Georgia's got the ball. Robinson hung the football a mile high, and the Notre Dame backs just ran away from it.
With Georgia at the 1-yard line, Herschel Walker went over the top to give the Dogs a 10-3 lead. Early in the second quarter, the Dogs would force a turnover deep in Notre Dame territory. Once again, Georgia looked to their superstar to punch it in.
Walker, sweep to the right, good blocking, he's in there.
Incredibly, despite moving the ball very little on offense, the Dogs had a 2-touchdown lead. On the ensuing drive, Notre Dame would march deep into Bulldog territory, and then, like he had done all year, Scott Woerner came up with a big play to maintain Georgia's 14-point lead. The Dogs took this lead into halftime, just 30 minutes away from the national championship. The second half was an ugly one for Georgia, and it mostly consisted of the offense going 3 and out, punting, and praying the defense would stand tall. Some Georgia players have said that they can't even watch the second half film of this game because of how slow and boring it was. With the defense on the field constantly, there was a real possibility that Georgia would break down from exhaustion and lose the game down the stretch. Defensive coordinator Irk Russell knew this, and he begged his players to keep playing hard.
Coach Russell's theme going into that game was just one more time. And he had these t-shirts made up that said just one more time, ...
Just one more time, just one more time. And it really turned out to be the sort of the theme of that game.
We'd always come off and we come feel, okay guys, one more time.
He must have said that 15 times in the second half, just one more time.
Yeah, by the time it's the 10th time he's done that, he goes, okay, you got one more time in you? Yes, sir, we're going to get it done.
Midway through the third, Notre Dame would once again drive deep into Bulldog territory, but once again came away with no points, this time due to a missed field goal. On their next drive, Notre Dame would finally punch it in to cut Georgia's lead to 7. Early in the fourth, the Fighting Irish would once again drive into scoring position and would once again miss a field goal. Midway through the fourth, Mike Fisher would secure Georgia's second interception of the night.
Strong arm goes deep for Hunter. It is intercepted. Picked off by Mike Fisher.
Georgia was clinging on for dear life with an offense that couldn't move the ball and a defense that was getting more and more exhausted with every drive. In the final minutes of the fourth quarter, Notre Dame had one more chance to drive down the field and score. The Bulldog defense had to make one last stand, and who else was going to make a big play than the man that had made big plays all season, Scott Woerner.
On 4th and 1, he gets his pass off. It is intercepted. I don't believe it.
The game wasn't quite over though, as Georgia needed to get a few first downs to run out the rest of the clock. On a crucial 3rd and 7, Georgia completed their first pass all game to pick up the first down. A few Herschel Walker runs later and Georgia had run out the rest of the clock. Just like that, the Georgia Bulldogs were undisputed national champions for the first time in program history. This was another one of those games that Georgia should not have won. Notre Dame had completely dominated Georgia in every offensive category, but the Dogs had forced 4 turnovers and made the consistent defensive plays necessary to win the game. This team has fascinated me for a long time, for more reasons than the obvious. I have watched hours and hours of Georgia football footage, and I can say without a doubt that this team was not the most talented Bulldog team from this time period. In fact, they are far from it. This team should have lost to Tennessee, should have lost to Clemson, should have lost to South Carolina, should have lost to Florida, and should have lost to Notre Dame. This team that went 12-0 and won the national championship just as easily could have gone 7-5 and finished the season unranked. But this team had something that only the great teams do, the thing that coaches love to harp on and analytics experts hate to hear about. They had the intangibles. They found a way to win, and they made the big plays when they mattered most.